Embracing pause, pandemic realities in the maritime industry. The COVID pandemic has wreaked havoc on economies on the world on a global scale as economists and fiscal policy experts associate its effect as the worst global economic crisis of the century in comparison with the global economic recession of 2008 and the economic depression of the 1930s. The impact of the pandemic has reverberated across several sectors, particularly the maritime, aviation, and transport industry as a whole as the demand and supply level in these industries continue to thin due to country-wide border restriction. However, whilst the extent of governmental intervention to stabilize the economy could be a source of concern, notably most governments have cushioned the impact of the pandemic through the introduction of stimulus and palliative. The Australian government, for instance, is backing a $110 million freight service to enable Australia's agricultural and fisheries sector to export their high-quality produce and reconnect with their international customer. The International Freight Assistance Mechanism (IFAM) will help Australian agricultural and fisheries producers who have been heavily impacted by pandemic containment measures around the world. Nigeria, as a developing nation, has suffered major losses across board as the economy cannot afford the requisite support to ensure sustenance of this industry. Impact of the maritime sector on the economy. The maritime sector has greatly contributed to fostering trade, promoting globalization, and has aided the Nigerian economy in terms of seamless export of locally made and sources products. Due to the nature of business, major operations have been suspended as a response to curb the spread of the virus globally. The shipping sector has long been tied to China, which, as a matter of fact, has made it prosperous as a major trade partner for several countries and a key leader in shipbuilding. Since the virus started spreading from China to its neighboring countries, the shipping sector only seemed to experience marginal impact, initially witnessing only a minor fall in the demands export in China, and nearby countries started operating at limited capacity. The maritime sector globally has experienced setback and reduced revenue. For instance, the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore (MPA) provided financial support to the maritime industry against the surge of the COVID-19 pandemic. The surge of to help first vessel owner and operators of cargo vessel. MPA will provide a 30% reduction in port dues for cargo vessel during the period. MPA will also grant a 30% concession on port dues for all non-passenger carrying harbour craft in the Port of Singapore over the same period. In addition, regional ferry operators will be offered a 50% rebate to offset their monthly rental fees for the overnight vessel berthing. In the United Kingdom, UK Chamber of Shipping has placed an immediate demand for a multi-million pound government support package to ensure the shipping industry can continue to bring in the food, goods and medicine the country will need to fight the coronavirus. Currently, as highlighted above, about 50 cargoes of Nigeria's crude oil were yet to find buyers. This is a general problem with shipping and maritime. There has been a sharp decline in the volume of import and export cargoes, and some retailers and manufacturers have failed to claim their cargoes, and containers leaving the warehouses congested. In addition, thousands of dock workers have been laid off as employers in the industry are seeking cheaper labor as a means to cut costs. This is a trend similar to the 2016 depression, where thousands of dock workers were laid off to tide companies through economic strife. This would be a double impact considering that the Nigerian maritime sector has been on a steady decline since the last quarter of 2016. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry published an analysis highlighting that trillion of naira is loss of revenue annually due to the shortcoming of the port in Nigeria. In recognition of the pressure the pandemic will impose on the maritime and shipping sector, the federal government should intervene and ensure the ideal objective of the ease of doing business. This can be achieved by offsetting certain obligation and giving relief. Relief that could alleviate the colossal losses of players in this industry range from storage fee relief on consignment and demurrage as already directed by the Nigerian Port Authority. Contractual obligation amidst the pandemic. Since the advert of the pandemic COVID-19 in Wuhan, China in December 2019 has taken over headline across the globe and has greatly affected a lot of industry including the global shipping industry. It has decreased and forced a stop to international travels. Border closure has disrupted different contracts and many parties can no longer meet up with contractual obligation. The implication of this has resulted to parties not being able to fulfill and proceed with their obligation. In other cases, the contract becomes impossible to perform or where the performance is time sensitive, the delay is such that the contract can no longer serve the purpose for which it was entered into. A party may be able to plead force majeure of hardship if there are specific clauses in the contract. Common examples of what might constitute force majeure include labor dispute, acts of God, casualty, war, riot, strike, terrorism, natural disaster, delays in obtaining or an inability to obtain labor, utilities or materials, and essential any event beyond the control of the relevant party. Condition that arguably may give rise to a claim of force majeure, the claim must satisfy the following condition. The event must be beyond the reasonable control of the applicable party. The applicable party must have been prevented from performing its obligation, and the applicable party must have taken all reasonable steps to avoid its non-performance and have satisfied its duty to mitigate damages as a result thereof. Absent of a force majeure clause. Force majeure is a clause that must be included in a contract for it to take effect. In the absence of this clause in a charter, a common law principle of frustration entities parties to suspend obligation or performance pending the resolution of the event hindering the acting of either party and be extension to determine the contract at first instance. It is strict law that the contract isn't deemed frustrated merely because its execution becomes more difficult or more expensive than either party originally anticipated or that it has to be carried out in a manner not envisaged at the time of negotiation of the contract.